Happy Hispanic and Italian Heritage Month. So these two cultural events happen around the same month. And since this show revolves around that of a Mexican and Italian family, I decided to combine these two. And so I'm here today to talk to you about Wizards of Waverly Place, Part 1, a show that came out in 2007 and lasted all the way to 2012. This right here is my all-time favorite Disney Channel original television show. It came out after I was in college. So I was pretty much in my mid 20s, maybe late 20s. I didn't care. I love this movie and everything. Not movie, but television show. I'm thinking about something else right now. But I love this television show and stuff. See, I love sorcery type stuff. I love witches, wizards, sorcerers, wands, stuff like that. It all started back in the day of growing up with Sabrina the Teenage Witch, then things like Harry Potter and Charmed and stuff like that, and other various stuff in Hollywood. And so this was right up my alley and everything, you know what I'm saying? And not only that, but you know as well as I do, Harry Potter inspired this television show. I mean, young wizards learning to be magical inclined, having wands of all things. Because for the most part, most of the time when you see a sorceress or a witch or a wizard or something like that, they normally just do magic with their hands. But ever since Harry Potter broke out the wands and everything, this show had them as well. And they even kind of spoofed the Harry Potter franchise with Wiz Tech and everything. And Harry Potter was still around at that time, I believe. So Disney decided to capitalize and also on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And capitalize they did. This show was just hilarious. And the added touch was the magic, you know what I'm saying? Around this time, this was Disney Channel's golden era, where they always had to have some type of gimmick for their television show. A psychic, a pop star, a boy band, and of course, magical wizards and stuff. And that is where all the fun and craziness and chaos comes from, is from this family that is magical. But not every member of the family is magical and stuff. And I think they did a really good job balancing the humor, the wackiness and the magical stuff to make this a true treasure of Disney Channel and stuff. It wasn't really all that dramatic, but they do fall into the teen tropes, because the show is about young teenagers, and then they later become older teenagers. In fact, this is one of those rare occasions on Disney Channel where the cast actually grows up and you see them graduate from school and stuff. You see Justin, he graduates from high school and is supposed to go to college, but there's a twist with that and everything. Then you later see Harper and Alex graduate from high school, kinda, or they get their diplomas, and then they move out on their own. That's pretty adult for Disney Channel. And of course, around this time, this is when Disney Channel was starting to mature a lot more. Still in that okay, it's the golden renaissance, but it's also kind of that pop singer era they had. But they were starting to come out of that and starting to be a bit more grounded once the show ended. And then you had shows like Jessie that was kind of steering away from that wacky pop star type thing and starting to be a bit more grounded. Then after that, they started to be very grounded. So grounded that people is all like, they don't like the new Disney Channel. It's not that wacky time of like Sweet Life and Zack and Cody, Hannah Montana, Wizards, Sunny with a Chance, That's So Raven. They like that era and everything. Now, when it comes to this show, like I said before, it's about a biracial family that is magically inclined. This was a huge step for Disney Channel because they don't really do diversity that much, especially back in the day. And to have a show that, revolves around a predominantly mixed race family was very, very, very new and stuff. They haven't done that since the famous Jack Jackson. But like I said before, it wasn't originally intended to be like that. Originally, they were just going with the typical Disney formula, have a white family. And in fact, Jennifer Stone mentioned that they had her audition for the main lead of the show. But it wasn't until they found Selena Gomez, they decided, well, actually, tell you the truth, when they found Selena Gomez, it was still going to be a white show. But then later on, one of the executive producers decided, hey, let's just make them a mixed like race family and everything. Mainly because of her ethnicity and stuff. Selena is half Italian and half Mexican. Now, technically, Italians are really nothing more but like white Europeans, but they don't really look like that. Some do, some don't. And so, but it's still that of like, a mixed race. Like, I still want to believe Italian people got a little something, something in them, especially with their skin tone and everything. Especially the ones from like Italy, you know what I'm saying? And so, with that said, this is one of those reverse situations where the best friend isn't a person of color, but the best friend is actually white. Now, other than like the magical quality of this show and like the family angst, I really like the diversity in this show. Like, it was very rare to have like, one, a mixed race family, and two, one centered around that of a Mexican and an Italian family. Because we all know how Disney likes to roll. They will bring in diverse characters, but normally they are just that of the person of color best friend, and they normally are recurring characters. There rarely ever be a main cast member of color when it comes to like people of color in a Disney Channel show. Like next year, like when I was doing like next year, I'm gonna put out a video about like the younger black stars, the early Zoog Disney era. There are 13. And these are just the young ones, not the adults. And almost all of them, like 98%, or actually 99% probably, are like the black best friend. And they're recurring characters. And there's only a small few that were actually like, main characters and stuff. And so the fact that they were willing to do this after, of course, Selena Gomez got cast, because she's been trying to break into like Disney Channel for like the longest time. Like originally, What Stevie's Thinking was supposed to be a Lizzie McGuire spinoff. Then that was also going to center around like a Mexican family. Then there was, I think, Sweet Life and Zack and Cody spinoff with Irwin, where she was gonna play like, I think, like his niece or something like that. And the actual unaired pilot, I believe the whole thing is somewhere online on YouTube, or at least a couple of clips. But that didn't get picked up. Then she guest starred on like Hannah Montana as like Hannah's rival. I'm not sure if that character was ever supposed to get a spinoff or not. But like after that, then she did, I don't know when the Princess Protection thing came out. I don't know if it was before Wizards or after Wizards or during Wizards, but like she later nabbed the role of like, Wizards of Waverly Place. And so originally, like I said, they was gonna make the family white and then kind of like Irish and stuff. But thank God they made it based on Selena's like race and everything, because that's like really cool that it's representing who she is as like a person. And it's always cool to see yourself on like television. And they even in the first season, they actually had like, some Latino themed episodes, like the Quinceañera, and I think there was that one episode of trying to teach Alex like Spanish and stuff. Sadly, however, the Italian side of their family constantly kept getting shoved like away and stuff. We really didn't learn nothing about their Italian heritage, other than their uncles and aunts would make appearances like on the show, and that one time their Latino cousins and stuff would appear. But it wasn't until the Alex versus Alex special in 2012, I think that's when it came out, or maybe a little bit later, that we actually they got sent to, I think, Italy, and we got to see like more Jerry's people and stuff. But you didn't really learn nothing about like the culture and stuff, so that kind of sucks. That the Italian side of like their race kept getting like pushed to the side. However, their Mexican side rarely got touched on as well. Other than those two episodes and that one family episode, you never heard nothing about them being like Mexican. You didn't hear them really, or you would hear them speak Spanish, at least the mother and everything. But she wouldn't speak full Spanish. She would only use the Spanish terms to like say like, I guess like maybe daughter or son or grandpa or grandma, something like that. And so at least there was some sort of representation in that. I don't know who really pushed for that, but thankfully it was there. But other than that, you didn't really learn nothing about their Mexican heritage and stuff, except for that Okuli episode, where it's kind of like some kind of Mexican, like, folklore type thing. So other than like the Quinceañera, the learning Spanish, the Mexican like monster thing, and a little bit of speaking Spanish here and there, that's really the only like representation you got of the Mexican culture, which is impressive for like that time in Disney. But you never heard them speak Italian or even really mention anything about like Italy or their heritage and stuff. And so, like, when it comes to the cast, they couldn't have gotten more better than this. Like, everybody really rolls off each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, they really complement each other so well to where you really truly believe they are a family. That is part of that Disney Channel magic. Like when you watch a lot of these shows and you see a lot of these families, like Even Stevens, the Lizzie McGuires, the That's So Ravens, and like a couple of the others, you really truly feel like they are like a real family that like is just like in the real world and bicker like a real family and get along like a real family, have each other backs like a real family. Like they really, really cast this show very well, even though originally it was not intended to be that way. In fact, it went through about 4 iterations with name changes and stuff before they settle on the family that they have now. Todd Greenwald is the creator of this show. And he was later joined by like an executive producer. Peter, and I'm not sure how to say his last name, Moretta. Peter is the one who decided to make them a Mexican Italian family. He also is the one who helped, like, shape the show. And there's some things he wanted to do, like make Alex openly bisexual and stuff, to where that wasn't going to go well with Disney. And it was later revealed he was let go from the show in its last season, the 4th season. And we can all agree that 4th season, while it's not horrible by no means, it's not that thrilling and everything. In the fourth and final season, Vince Chong and Ben Montonio, they took over as the new showrunners. And I've seen a lot of people complain online they just don't like that fourth season. I think what it was is that one reason is too much kind of change. The show was growing up, so it was growing up with this audience, you know what I'm saying? You see, like, Justin, that twist that happened with him in college that we don't get to see. He later becomes like a tutoring teacher to a bunch of young wizards. We see Alex and Harper literally move out. We see more solo episodes with Harper and Alex. There's the whole Mason deal. There's the whole, and also a lot of episodes dealt in like 2 or 3 parters and stuff. And there was always some type of magical creature thing with those 2 or 3 parters. It really started to like mature. And I think that was one of the problems with the show. It's kind of like a drama or an action series that's like an hour long. They can evolve and develop and grow. But a sitcom, they kind of need to stay the same. Once everything starts to change, it just doesn't feel the same no more. The characters, the vibe, like the everything. Plus, once they realize, hey, the show's coming to an end, they had to rush the finale. And the whole thing they've been like striving to get to, the wizard competition, was extremely rushed and very unsatisfying. It was really uninteresting and stuff. And I think it might have been just a single episode, maybe a 2-parter, but I'm not sure. But I think it might have just been a single episode. And it broke the continuity of the movie because we already saw what the wizard competition looked like in the movie, and it was miles different from that of the finale of the show. Also, characters' personalities started to get very, very annoying, like Mason and Justin and stuff. And while all that was going on, Max was kind of just like lost in the shuffle as he always is. And it just didn't really feel the same. It wasn't horrible by no means. It was just kind of different. And I remember I was devastated when I found out that the show was coming to an end and they wasn't getting that 5th season. Now, there is a rumor as to why the show got canceled. Wikipedia states that Selena Gomez is actually the one who wanted the show to end because she wanted to move away from Disney and pursue like a movie career where she does more mature roles. And I get that. Like, a lot of child stars, they want to move up in Hollywood and do more maturity. Because one thing I've noticed about like so many former Disney Channel stars and even Nickelodeon stars, but more so Disney because I watch more Disney than Nickelodeon. So I don't really know too many of these Nickelodeon kids, but just about every single last former Disney child, when I saw them in another project outside of Disney, when they became like older teenagers or adults, one of the first thing they do is cuss to let everybody know, yo, I ain't that Disney child no more. However, Selena Gomez kind of stepped it up a notch. I don't know when this movie came out. It might have been back when she was with Disney or maybe when she wasn't. But supposedly she was in this movie and her character was supposed to say the N-word, was supposed to get tricked into saying it. And she says it. And I'm very devastated by that because I hate that word. But anyways, and when they don't do cussing, then it results in the sexy clothing, the drinking I'm talking about like the shows and the movies that these former Disney child be in. Not their everyday life, that's very similar. The clickety clacketing and everything. They do what everything they have to do to let people know, yo, I'm not this former Disney child. Now, like I said, I don't blame her because a lot of people want to move up and everything and not be always reminded of this role. And a lot of former Disney Channel stars, so many of them regret doing Disney Channel and always trash it once they leave it. However, if you ever follow her career after Disney Channel, then you would know her movie career didn't pan out the way she wanted it to. I know she did Spring Breakers. I don't know how people feel about that because I've never seen it. And so I know she did this one movie, was kind of like a crime drama where she played a character who doesn't have a name but is only referred to as Kid, and that bombed and everything. So after a while, she took a seat back from like acting and stuff, and she focused on her music with her band Selena Gomez and The Scene. But then something happened. They broke up for some bizarre reason. And then she decided to make the best career change of her life. She became a producer and she was creating things. Now, I can't say the show she helped produce because of the subject matter in that show. It was a Netflix show. And so, like, yeah, since this is a Disney Channel show I'm talking about, it's best if I just don't name that. But that went on for at least 4 seasons and stuff. Then she had like some type of cooking type show. And then, of course, we all know came Only Murders in the Building, which is still on Hulu today. And so with all that, she went back to acting with that show. And that show really paid off to where she now helped like create that of Wizards Beyond Waverly Place, which I'll get a little bit into it towards the end of this thing. And now I heard she's going back into music. So in a way, it kind of worked out for her to leave Disney behind and everything. She stumbled a little bit and then she picked herself back up. But like I said, this is only stated on Wikipedia. She left to pursue more mature things. So I don't really know if that's real or not. But there's an article I read one time where JT Alston, who played Max, confirmed it and stuff. So back to originally what I was saying before. Originally, this show looked completely different and had like different names for the characters. I found the original unaired pilot clip, not the entire episode, but just the clip of what this show was originally about. Now, as we all know, that this is the show about wizards, 3 young wizards, and they have to compete. They have to learn and train to hone their powers so that they can compete in the wizard competition, because only one member of the family can keep their powers, while the other 2 just loses them and stuff. It's an interesting premise, and I do like that. It does set it apart from Sabrina the Teenage Witch and that of Harry Potter. And so, like, and you wonder, like, who's gonna be the wizard at the end? Is it gonna be your favorite or is it gonna be another? Now, you should have guessed already. It's gonna be the main star of the show. It's gonna be the Selena Gomez character and stuff. Because around this time, Disney catered mainly to a female audience. So what they would do is that the main character of the show would be a female, and then the rest of the characters in the family would just like be kind of like supporting cast of that main character. And they did this for a number of their television shows, but every once in a while they change it up to where it'll be a brother-sister duo similar to Even Stevens, or it will be centered around like a group of guys or like a male. But it's very rare that it's like that. So everybody knew it was going to be the Alex character and stuff. But they could have changed things up and made it somebody else. But I think people would have been pissed because Alex was the main character, you know? And so the family, they lived in a New York apartment above a substation shop. And so they would sell sandwiches, but there would be like a subway cart type thing within, like, you know, the building. And when they went into the freezer, they went into the magical layer, kind of similar to Sabrina Teenage Witch when they went into the closet and went into the witch world and everything. However, it wasn't always supposed to look like that. Originally, it wasn't three siblings, but it was just a brother-sister duo. And they owned a magical like shop. And in the clip, you can see that as the Selena Gomez character, who has a different name, teleports back in and stuff. And David Henry character is still like the older brother and stuff. And I was very shocked when I saw this clip because I never knew that existed. I never knew that there was an unaired pilot, and I never knew that they had completely different names. In fact, I believe the names were originally Jordan and Julia Brooke and everything. And I'm just like, what? So they were intended to be like white characters and stuff, you know? But then all of a sudden their names got changed. I think it was Shuli or something like that, or Guli or Shuli or something or another. I can't remember exactly what, but it was something around that last name. And so then later on, when they started to be like, okay, later on their names got changed to O'Malley and everything. I'm all like, are they supposed to be Irish now? And then that's when they introduced like the Max character. But then all of a sudden, they renamed the kids once again. But then they changed the names to Alexa, Aaron, and Max Esposito and stuff. And but then, like I said before, it was Peter, I think he was like an executive producer, like showrunner type person. He is the one who decided, okay, let's get them the name Russo, and let's just make them a mixed family, Italian and Mexican and stuff. And now we have Alex, Justin, and Max. I like the last name Russo. Like, it's cool, you know what I'm saying? And I prefer their names like a whole lot more than what they was originally called. But it is kind of interesting because they kept sticking with the Max character. Or at least his name, that is. Now, as much as I love the diversity of like Mexican people, Latinos, and like Italians, sadly, this show is hard pressed on other like forms of racial representation. There are plenty of white people in this show, but you'll be hard pressed to find like a black person or Asian, Native American, or any other type of race. Like you rarely even see them in the background. Now, the show would evolve as time would pass on, like I said, even in the other seasons. In fact, the whole premise of the show kind of morphed in a way. Like originally, like I said before, it's about three young wizards. They're in their lair and their father teaches them magic. And so, well, then after that, they do their teenage angst and misuse magic and stuff like that, right? Somewhere in the first season towards the end, we started to see less and less of them being taught magic, which is quite a shame because that was one of the funnest parts of like the show. It would normally open like that or come after the intro. And I really enjoyed seeing them in the lair, seeing them be taught magic, seeing Max beat not Max, but seeing Alex trying to like con her way into something, and seeing Max make fun of Justin along with Alex and stuff like that. And seeing Justin perfect like a spell, and seeing the dad get like really upset and mad at like Alex and stuff. That was like always fun. That would like really kept me entertained into that of the show. It would kind of drew me in and kept me locked in. But then, like I said before, towards the end of the first season, you started seeing that less and less and less. Then by the second season, you really don't see it anymore. And it's quite a shame. Now they're just going through like typical family stuff with magical mischief, just like it happens to happen. They still go in and out the lair, but the lair is more like a hangout spot now. And then by the second season, Like, this is when Alex really started to take the wizard competition a lot like serious and stuff. And not only that, but her appearance changed. Now everybody's appearance will change throughout the seasons. Hairstyles, clothing, because they are evolving and stuff. But it was really interesting to see the Alex character with a short bob, more mature grown-up looking clothes, and for some reason always wearing high heels that made her look way taller. And it was around the time she wanted to take the competition more seriously because she realized Justin is way ahead of her. And she's kind of somewhere near Max's level. And she doesn't want to lose her power. So we see her studying a lot more. And we see Max get like the whole conscious thing, and it was really starting to shift like in a different direction. Plus, I forget what season it was. It's either 2 or 3. Justin becomes a monster hunter and everything. And it's just kind of like, man, this show is really going in like a different direction. But then you get to like the 3rd season, and now Alex's hair is back to fully being long. It was somewhat in the 2nd season. And also around the 2nd season, I think it was the 2nd or 3rd, Justin had like a different hairstyle. Around the time the whole Mason Juliet thing happened and the Monster Hunter thing happened, he had a more shorter buzz cut type hairstyle. And he started to look a bit more mature. And not only that, but like he had more muscles and stuff. But then in the 3rd season, we started to see him wanting to become like, the student body president. Um, his personality shifted as well, because in the 2nd season he started. Okay, here's the thing. In the 1st season, he was kind of more like the kid brother who kind of wanted to get back at his sister, slightly moody but not much, and also that dorky nerdy vibe. 2nd season, he started to be a bit more grumpier and everything, and he was less of a nerd, and he started like looking more muscular. Then by the 3rd season, he went full on dork and everything, to the point where Alex would constantly make fun of him and almost bully and pick on him and stuff, like way worse than like before. And her personality changed to the point where she literally got sick and tired of him because she started hanging around Stevie a lot more. And with this, the older Alex started to kind of come back a little bit, with the longer hair and stuff like that. But then you get into like the 4th season, and we started to see a bit more, like even towards the 3rd, Alex started to change to where she was more helpful. She was less lazy and everything. And we started seeing her become like that main character potential and everything of her taking the prize and stuff. It was to the point where she was starting to save the day a whole lot more than Justin, who normally used to save the day. And then in that final season, Justin kind of became like, they would make him kind of dumb, which is weird because he's supposed to be really smart. Like when he exposed wizardry to the entire real world, it's kind of like, you can't be that stupid, dude. But then in the like last season, they made him very grumpy to where he was just rude and nasty to Alex all the time. When they made him like a tutor, then Alex kept going on whatever kind of adventure with like Harper, but everything started to get more like into their boyfriends and romance and stuff like that. But it was interesting to see how dumb Justin would become and how much more mature Alex would become in that last season. And, that's character development for you. But it was just a weird shift and change because, like I said before, the premise is about these goofy kids who misuse magic and being taught by their father. And then that really quickly got phased out. And like I said before, the only time you really see them in the lair is just kind of hang out or Justin in his tutor session and stuff like that. The thing about the episodes that I like is like, it's not all like fun and games, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not overly silly. Like there is like a little bit of drama here and there, especially in the first season. The first season it was a bit more wackier, you know what I'm saying? Like sillier, wackier because the kids were very, very young. That's one thing I like and notice about the show. Like the show progressed with the maturity as the young cast started to get older. Since they was younger and shorter, it was a bit more juvenile and everything. Like First Kiss. Justin and his girlfriend, or somebody he really wants to be his girlfriend, he's really scared about giving her the first kiss, and every time he tries, he messes up. So Alex keeps reversing time by like 5 seconds or so. And hopefully he'll get it right, but he constantly keeps getting it wrong. And the side effect is when you keep using this one spell to reverse time for every like 5 seconds, after a while, people start to get like deja vu, and it really backfires on the substation because this guy wanted to give like Max millions and millions of dollars for making this special sandwich. But after a while, he ate it so many times that he assumed it wasn't new, it was just like something old, you know? And I almost drowned like in chocolate. That was a really fun episode where what was it exactly? It was something about Alex going somewhere to some type of like dinner, and I think Justin was gonna hang out with his friends probably. And so she had this, I forget the creature's name. It's this tiny little creature, and you give it chocolate, it gets all hyper. And if it bites you, you start to love chocolate. So she was eating chocolate everywhere. And then she literally jumped in like a chocolate fountain and started drinking it. See, it was fun little stuff like that that gets you hooked because it's the silliness of it all. It's the, you know, 'cause they don't take themselves too seriously. And also like the whole like dragon episode with like, you know, the dog, like because they didn't have the special effects to make like an actual dragon, they decided, okay, fine, we'll have this dragon, but he's glamored to look like a dog, so he's like spelled and everything, you know. And it's just funny seeing this dog all of a sudden sprout wings, fly around, and shoot fire out everywhere, as they had to hide it from their parents and stuff. Or that time Justin wanted to go to like a more adult R-rated movie and with his friends, and Alex wanted to like tag along. But somehow she ended up getting stuck inside like, you know, the movie and stuff, and Justin had to get her out because people at his school are going to notice that, hey, Alex is in the movie. And it's like little things like that that makes Alex the rebel that she is, but it was mostly just her not being included and wanting to have fun. Or like Potions Commotion, where Alex would like I think mess up some like potions and stuff, and she got like this really big head. Or Justin's little sister, I think that was the episode I finally started to really pay attention to this show, and I started recording certain clips and scenes from it because it was just funny because it's called Justin's little sister, but it's Justin the one being affected and stuff. Basically they found this genie lamp. No, they didn't find it. It was part of the lesson. So the dad took them inside the genie lamp, and that was pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? And so Alex, I think she wished the genie free or some crap like that. But then she also made a spell, and the genies they like to be tricky with their three wishes and stuff. And so next thing you know, I think she says she doesn't want to be compared to like Justin, or she doesn't want people to see her like Justin. So the genie made Justin disappear at first. No, first the genie made Justin like, you know, nobody knew who he was. And so he went to school and he was just confused. That's why nobody knew who he was. Then they made another spell and he went completely invisible. And I love the special effects as you see like, you know, his clothes wandering around, but there's like no head and like feet or hands and stuff. And I remember watching that episode, and the mom's all like, she was like just so concerned for Justin, even though she didn't know who he was, but she felt like she knew who he was, but she couldn't understand why she cared for him so much when she felt like she didn't know him because the genie kind of like erased him from like existence and stuff. And so they had to like go in, and there was like tons of soda in the genie lamp, and they had to use that giant paper clip for like to hit the button and everything, the reset button. It was just things like that that made the show so kooky and everything. But then you get into season two, and like I said before, that's when it started getting a bit mature. Like the kids were getting a little bit older. They were getting into relationships. This is when Dean first appeared and stuff. And Alex had a crush on the resident bad boy of the school. Well, he was supposedly bad, but he never acted bad. He was just a grease monkey and stuff. And then that time Justin fell in love with like a werewolf that looked more like a dog, and she acted like a dog. And I remember that episode because that was around the time Alex stopped wanting to like hang around Justin and pestering him, and we really got like the true official Alex, one that's like lazy, doesn't want to like interact with her brothers and stuff, can't stand Max, and like could care less if Justin leaves, but deep down inside she misses him and stuff. This is when we started getting like Max, not Max, but Alex the brat, you know what I'm saying? Where she just seemed like selfish and could care less and stuff like that. And it was also around the time that like Harper started to come back into the show because Harper started to disappear sometime in the first season where she wasn't in that many episodes, and then she comes back and she's basically in almost every episode. And so they decided, okay, we're gonna let Harper know about them being wizards. At first I was opposed to that, but it turned out to be better than I thought. Also episodes like the taxi cab episode where the taxi cab like grows an attachment to like Alex, and it won't leave her alone, and it literally comes crashing into like their home and stuff. We will also get these really cool like enchanting type episodes where like they would go inside Alex's storybook or her sketch pad or something like that, and it was so well done on the budget that they had that it made it feel that more special because the animation helped like build like the illusion of it all, which I don't understand why the new show doesn't do that. Another shift in like the show is that like the whole first season pretty much revolves around Alex, but then once you get into the second season, this one you start to build a whole lot more. It's more about like the entire family, and some of them get like solo episodes a whole lot more. And that was really cool because you don't want it just to focus on one person and one person only when the whole show has like a really dynamic cast. That's kind of how Even Stevens was in the first season. It was all about Ren and Lewis, but then by the second season, it started to be all about like the family and stuff. And like one of my favorite episodes is like a Wizard for a Day when Jerry got powers again. That was always like a really fun episode. Or the episode where Max gets like a girlfriend for the first time, and he doesn't want his girlfriend to know anything about his family because he's kind of embarrassed by them and stuff, because everybody, or that, and he's irritated because everybody like compares him to like the other two. But that fourth season, man, it was just, I don't know, man. It lost its specialness because by that time, everybody was older. And so the wackiness had to kind of like go away. They still brought it back in a humorous kind of way, but it just didn't feel right. The show just felt completely distant from what it used to be like in like the first two seasons. Now, this show dealt with romance like a lot. The two lead characters of Justin and like Alex were constantly infatuated with people, crushing on people, and dating on people. But things really, really, really got extremely serious when Mason and Juliet showed up. And even in that like werewolf episode where it's like that big lovey thing, it was filmed differently. It was filmed almost like a movie and stuff. And that was after 2009 because it was after the events of like the movie and stuff. And I don't mind the lovey-dovey stuff all that much, but it did kind of take up slightly, just slightly too much of their like, character development because it's weird. They go from being mature to back to being their kiddish self or a lazy self or this and that. And also a lot of that romance stuff just kind of like, okay, look, are they gonna be together? Are they not? Like they really tried to make it something where it's like, will they, won't they kind of thing. They kept tugging at people's heartstrings because you just want them to be together, but then something magical will happen that will backfire and take their loved one like away. Now, this show also had a bunch of like recurring characters, memorable ones as well. But they will all tend to disappear after a while. Some were properly written off, but others just completely disappeared. Now, another shift in the show was like how they use magic. So, like I told you before, they have wands, and their wands all look different from each other. You have Justin that's more traditional, that looks more like a wooden carrot. You have Alex that's more girly and brightly colored, like kind of like a pinkish red with a jewel at the end of it. And then you have Max, who's the youngest and is more electronic looking, kind of like a Wii stick, or I think that's what he's called. Like, what was it, Nintendo Wii or something like that? It looks more like some type of electronic handle type thing. And so, being like the fan that I am, I love wands and everything. I love the little glowing pulsing light at the end of the wand. I miss that in the new series. The new series has more like a sparkly, cloudy effect, but I miss the pulsating light that goes like brighter and brighter and bigger as you're like doing your spell. Plus, I love like the little hand gesture they did with like the wand, where they were like, instead of just saying their spell and pointing it, they will like twirl the wand around and stuff. It's just that added little effect that makes it more special. However, something weird happened. The wands kind of got phased out in very early in the first season. So after a couple of episodes, they just started doing hand magic and verbal magic. And this will last pretty much all in like season one. But somewhere in between season two, the wands started to appear again, and next thing you know, they started using their wands for every spell. And that's how it is for like the new series. In the new series, they have to use their wands for every magical spell that they do. Personally, I love the wand, so no complaint there. The layer, I love the layer. The layer is so enchanting. Like there are times I just want to like take my eyes and move all around the screen and try to look at all the different set pieces that are in the layer. But of course, because the kids are in the layer and sometimes Jerry, you want to see what's going on with them. But there is just so much cool stuff in the layer. I really wish they could have went on like a tour or shown how everything is used. And now in the new series, there's like a purple filter with the layer. Also, it's a bit smaller because they had to recreate it from the original set because they got rid of the original set. Now, this show had a lot of famous people who would guest star in it. A lot of people I forgot. Cindy Crawford, Missy May Trainer, The Rock. This one actor that passed away, I forget his name. Actually, there's two. Actually, there's three. And like, there's a bunch of other like famous people that like big name stars, you know. But then also it was interesting to see a couple of up and coming Disney Channel stars appear on the show, like China McClain. Sadly, however, this show has its fair share of losses. And there are about three that I can think of, like that have sadly passed away, like the actor who plays Mr. Crumbs, or the dude who was like a gargoyle and everything. And now one really snooty guy for that fashion show episode. May they all rest in peace. And I remember these guys from like other projects and stuff. Mainly the Gargoyle dude and Mr. Crumbs. I remember them from other projects. The other guy I think I've seen once before. That's about it. Oh no, wait, this show has four people that died. There's also the dude with the dragon dog. And yeah, sadly he passed away. So there's about four people who have passed away. So may they rest in peace. Those are the only ones I can think of just at this moment. But by far, the funnest thing of this show is when the three siblings would save like either the world, the Wizarding World, or the entire universe. There are multiple episodes throughout the series, and at least one to two in the earlier seasons, but multiple times in the last, where the three Russo siblings would literally have to save something with their magic, their smarts, and just their cunning, like wits and everything. And this was always kind of cool because I like the idea of them kind of being like superheroes in a way, you know? Like they didn't wear costumes, but they had like their wands or just hand magic. And the first time this happened was with WizTech in season one, when Alex and Justin had, well, mostly just like Alex, that had to like save the Wizarding World from Evilini. But then in like other seasons, you will see them have to like save something, like especially towards the end of like, the series, where they had to stop an asteroid and they had to get like on this makeshift type like shuttlecraft and literally go out into outer space and stop this thing from like destroying like the earth. And I remember Alex accidentally, well, no, Justin got his foot stuck and Alex for some reason couldn't get it out. So she used some weird spell to turn him into like a sand dollar or something like that so he can regrow his limb. Then there's the time that Mason, like, ate Dean and they had to get in a submarine and shrink down and like go inside like Mason's digestive system and, stuff like that. I'm trying to think of another. Oh, then of course there's the movie where like they had to save their family, and the time with like, the angels and dark angels and I can't think of another one off the top of my head, but there's been at least a couple of times where they had to save something. Normally it's the trio, but most of the time it's just a duo of Alex and like Justin. Now, in the second season, they had that really cool Hannah Montana, Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, like crossover and stuff. And I've already reviewed that. Go watch that. So I'm not really going to talk about it. But in that third episode, it was kind of weird because the Wizard cast did not interact at all with like the Hannah Montana cast. And Jennifer Stone, spilled the tea on that. Basically, Miley and Selena was in a feud at that time over one of the Jonas brothers. I think both of them dated them and something happened and teen drama crap. So that really sucks that happened. However, both those two are on speaking terms now. In 2009, we got that really cool Disney Channel original movie, which was kind of different. Like some of the characters' personalities were way different. Like Max was more serious and less goofy. Justin was a little bit more of a rebel. And like the mom was a bit meaner and stuff. But it was a really, really awesome movie. I enjoyed it. I already reviewed that. Go watch that. Then in 2013, all of a sudden, a year after the show got canceled, Wizards of Waverly Place special came on called Alex versus Alex, which is the good Alex versus like I guess like her clone version that's evil, and so or it's actually her evil side or whatever. Not as good as the movie. It felt more like a television episode. Justin wasn't in it. Now there supposedly he was directing the movie. Some people always went with that theory, which is the main one that seems pretty solid and everything. However, there's always been this weird speculation that like he just wasn't asked to be a part of it because supposedly he didn't get along with somebody, which I don't believe that at all. I just believe that like, it was probably he was doing, I think he was directing like that short movie or something like that and just couldn't be a part of it. Because as we all now know, in like, what was it, 2024, they came out with a spin-off series called Wizards Beyond Waverly Place, where Justin has now come back with his own family and he's teaching a young wizard by the name of Billy. And his second season actually came out last month. I've only seen one episode so far as of the recording of this video. It hasn't hit Disney Plus yet because they're trying to change things around. Because like originally what they would do is they'll show it on Disney Channel, then they'll show it on Disney Plus the next night and then next day, and then they will drop all the episodes for the first half and then second half the next year. They have now stopped that formula, which pisses me off because I want to see those episodes. The show had 2 intros in its entire 4-season run. From season 1 through 3, the intro was sung by Selena Gomez, and it's a very bright and colorful, like almost CGI-ish of like their home, their rooms, the bathroom, stuff like that. Because we've never seen their bathroom in the show. And basically it shows the kids getting ready for school. And it pretty much shows just how they are. Alex sleeping in, the alarm clock goes off, Justin's like, hygiene, Max turning like fruit into like a cupcake or something like that. Then of course it has the parents, the mom's just like smiling, the dad's trying to do something with a book that's like floating in the air. And I think Harper shows up, but I'm not quite sure what she does. And then it's the kids just like leaving the substation and heading off to school, which is weird because Harper technically at that time wasn't living with them at that point. Then in the not second season, but in the last season, at least I believe it comes out in the last season, because I think the 3rd season is still the original intro. But in the 4th season, it changes dramatically. And now the intro is sung once again by Selena Gomez, just completely differently. And she's with her band, The Scene. And now it's more of like, I think I want to say like a purplish filter, but I'm not sure. But it's clips of like their characters in the show by an additional clip of them like looking into like the screen and everything. And it's just every character from clips from all like throughout the series and stuff like that. And then it's them outside, and I believe they might be looking up or something like that. Now, the 1st season had 21 episodes. The 2nd had 30. The 3rd season had 30. And the last season had 29. They couldn't score an extra episode. Like, come on, man, make it that 30. Okay, so I'll go with character bios now. And there's a lot of freaking characters in this show. I'll only try to stick to the main cast and only a couple of recurring that was important. So Gigi, played by Skylar Samuel. Gigi was in the 1st season only for like a small couple of episodes. She was in the pilot. She's the queen bee of the school and the mean girl. She has 2 little minions and she just hates Alex to death. They wanted to give her like a rival, someone who would constantly pick on her, look down on her, because Alex was very different. Alex in the first season was more like an alternative, like had like a rocker style to her a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Didn't really care what nobody thought about her. This will later change into more of like a mature hipster artsy kind of style. And so Gigi was just like mean, man. And I mean mean. She would constantly get people to like laugh and make fun of like Alex and stuff like that. There's been a couple of times where she was exposed to magic, but just assumed something weird wasn't going on. Like when she went inside Alex's journal, she just assumed it was like a dream or something like that. But like I said before, she got completely phased out just after a couple of episodes. And nobody really knows why. Most likely she took on like other projects. She was in Scream Queens and The Gifted. So she mostly just went on to other projects probably. Professor Evilini. Professor Evilini is played by Octavia Spencer, and she was the first villain introduced into the show, I believe. And she was a professor over at WizTech. I still can't believe Octavia Spencer was in this show. Like, as famous as she was, but she wasn't that famous yet. So basically, her big thing is that she's kind of one of those cackling type evil people. Like, she's evil, but more in the comedic kind of way. That's how a lot of the villains were back in like the earlier seasons. Her main thing is to find the certain like wizard that's really really good at playing this like wizard game, and like that will show that they're very like powerful and skilled and whatnot, and she wants to steal their powers. That person happens to be Justin. So when Alex finds out, she tries her best to like stop it. You know, I really do miss Evilini. Like, they never brought her back after her first appearance in the two-parter, which is kind of like a spoof on Harry Potter in the first season. However, it is revealed in the new show that she's trapped in some type of like amulet or something like that. And her son tried to take up her evil ways and tried to punish, like, you know, the Russos and tried to get like Billy's powers and stuff. But then he was defeated. But then in the second season, there's something called the Eye of Evilini, and this new Darth Vader type person has the an amulet. And I've only seen the first episode. The rest doesn't come out on Disney Plus until like October. So by the time like I upload this video, I'm gonna upload it earlier, sometime probably like in September, I will probably already see the first like couple of episodes to see what that's all about. Ian Abercrombie played that Professor Crumbs. He's kind of like, or Headmaster Crumbs. He's kind of like the Dumbledore of like this series. And may he rest in peace. So basically he has like a fake beard and it's really long and he's all wise and powerful. It's weird because it's kind of like he's very, very nice, but he seems to be kind of aloof, but he's not really aloof. He tends to get caught pretty easily for somebody who's supposed to be very powerful and stuff. And he's very strict on like Alice because she's always messing around with her powers. Like when she turned her family or her parents into guinea pigs. I think like she got like a bad grade on the report card or something. So she accidentally messed up a spell and turned her parents into guinea pigs. Then she turned, what is it? So then like, you know, Crumbs took away her powers. But then Justin turned Crumbs into like a guinea pig because he panicked and everything. And later on, he like gave them back. He's very fond of like the Russos and stuff. And there was one episode where Justin and Alice accidentally turned him into like a teenage boy or just like a boy. And he was very rambunctious as like a kid. And he seemed very aloof when he was a kid as well, not realizing that Max was actually a little girl at that time. He also tricked the Russos into seeing if they would reveal the wizard world to like the human world, which they did. He appeared just to be captive like everybody else, but he never was, and he created the entire scenario. He was always like a really fun and beloved character, and he's really missed in the new series. Hugh Norman, played by Josh Sussman, everybody's favorite wannabe giant. So the thing about Hugh Norman is that we met him in the first season doing the whole whiz tech thing. He has glasses, really poofy, like curly, nappish type of hair, and like everything about him is like his glasses are tiny, his wand is tiny. Everything he owns is tiny except for like his uniform and his clothes. And the thing is, the recurring gag is he's supposed to be a wizard slash giant, and his parents are giant. But for some reason, he's normal size. So to make him feel good, have good self-esteem, they make everything tiny around him so he doesn't feel bad for not being a giant. He's kind of based on the Hagrid type character. However, it's revealed, I think in the third season or so, that he's not really a giant. Turns out he's like adopted or something like that, or there was like switch at birth or something like that. But I think he continued to live with his giant family. I'm not sure. I forget the reason why he didn't live with his regular family and stuff. But the one thing I've always liked is that Alex is always nice to him, which is weird because he's so dorky and like stuff like that. And we know how she treats Justin and other dorky people, but she's always particularly nice to him. And I think he reappeared in the fourth season when he lived in that fake apartment and stuff. But so far, he has not shown back up in the new series. Rosie, played by Levin. I forget Levin's last name. Is something with an R. Raymond, Ramsey, something like that. And so she appeared in the fourth season. And she's Justin's new girlfriend who happens to be an angel. She pretended to be a wizard. There's like a full-on story arc with this that lasts for like a couple of episodes. And so I've always wondered, like, why the heck did she like him like so much? But she really, really did. And so her powers of the angel kind of came out of nowhere by mistake when her and Alice were supposed to do something, some type of presentation for like, this like wizard, like instructor type lady and stuff. And so like she got like exposed, and she just told Justin, the reason why she lied is because she liked him a whole lot. And so like they started dating, her and Alex and Harper and Justin, they all went to like this angel nightclub and everything. And then it's finally revealed she's actually evil. She's a dark angel. She's under a spell. And she tricked Justin so that Justin can get this magical type key type thing that they need to like, undo like the heaven world. And it was kind of interesting. They introduced angels and dark angels in this show. But it turned out like really she was just like under a spell. And so once she was off that spell and everything, she tried to like, save Justin, this and that. And when he was eventually off the spell, he didn't want absolutely nothing to do with her, which really wasn't her fault. It was just like, angels turn into dark angels when they're corrupted and everything. And it was really sad, like, to see him, like, reject her, because it really wasn't her fault. Plus, she's, like, smoking hot. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, that was the end of her. Her master is Grog, and he is, like, the evil dark wizard. He's kind of like the devil and everything. And basically, he corrupts good angels into doing his bidding. And it's like this magical key type thing that they have to get to turn like people evil and bad and stuff like that. But they need a mortal to do that. And that's when Justin comes in. He goes into like that heaven place. And he just like, I forget what he does to the angels in that room to immobilize them, but he gets like the key and stuff like that. After he's like defeated and stuff, I thought that was gonna be the end of him, but then no, he plotted his revenge against like Alex because she was the one who helped defeat him. And then I think his son tried to get revenge on her in that Alex versus Alex. China McClain. So she plays Tina in the fourth season in the Dark Angel arc, and she's training to be a guardian angel. She's very bubbly, very cheerful, and always smiling and always giggling, and to the point of getting on Alex's nerves. She helps Alex and everything to help save Justin and the rest of the angels, where she gets her wings. And I forget who she's supposed to be the guardian angel to. It might be Alex or something. This was interesting because technically she is the first black recurring character on this show. They had another little black girl on the show one time when Alex sold like her little dollhouse, and I think maybe another one, but this is the first recurring one, and it happened all the way in the fourth season. Mr. Larry Tate is the principal at Tribeca Prep, and so he has this whole cowboy like theme. I think he might be from like Texas and stuff like that. He's always saying things like giddy up and other kind of like cowboy phrases. And Justin is one of his favorite students, and Alex technically kinda is not. He really in the beginning, it seems like he really doesn't like her, and he's always comparing Justin to her and talking about why can't you be more like him. This is that whole like, Justin's little sister episode where like she had the genie kind of like erase him and stuff. And he's always hard on her, but he's only hard on her because she's a slacker, and he wants her to like make something of herself. By like the third season, they kind of started to phase him out, and then he only appeared for like 1 or 2 episodes in the fourth. One to give the girls their diploma, and then that whole like apartment episode, and then he got bit by like a zombie or something like that, where he just started like biting people and stuff. TJ, played by that of what's that dude's name, Daryl Sabra. So he's from like Spy Kids, and so Sabra, he played TJ, a very 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 annoying like wizard who had a catchphrase, "I'll show you," and stuff like that. Basically, he uses magic for fun. And he convinces Alex she should like do the same. And the reason why he uses his magic for fun and his parents don't get mad is because he spelled them with Kugel. And so Alex spelled her parents and everything. After a while, Justin saves the day, and then his parents are no longer under the spell. After that, he shows up for maybe 1 or 2 episodes again. So he shows up in like another episode, maybe 2, when it's revealed that like he spelled a teenage girl and turned her into a grown 30-something-year-old woman. And it turns out to be like the kid's art teacher and stuff. So Alex uses like undo me dust or whatever it's called. And it turns out, yeah, it's true. Like, she's like a actual teenage girl. She reappears in like 1 more episode, but that's about it. And then we don't see TJ no more. Bridget Mendler plays that of Juliet. She's the vampire. So she appears or recurs in the show like a good number of times. It started with that whole like arc of like wizards versus like vampires and stuff. Her parents own like a sandwich shop and it's competing with the Russos, and theirs is doing better than the Russos. After they convince Harper and Alex to like, work for them, it turns out that they're vampires and they wanted to bite those two. Justin ends up falling in love with her, and she falls in love with him back. It takes a while, but like, because at first she thought he didn't really like her. That's only because he's always overthinking things. But they made like the cutest little couple. And so at first, Harper really didn't like her all that much, but then they eventually got along. I think they might have switched bodies at one point in time, but like the whole Juliet arc came to an end because Bridget, I think she was either doing a Disney Channel movie or she later on eventually got her own show called Good Luck Charlie. And so, like, they wrote her off to where a mummy, like, imprisoned her. And because, like, her and Justin was like monster hunting and they got trapped and the sunlight would have killed her and stuff like that. So Justin's all like, you have to be under the mummy spell in order for you to survive, this and that. So she's missing for a couple of episodes, and then finally Mason tracks her down. But it turns out her and Mason are former boyfriend and girlfriend from like over like 100 something years ago. But him being all impulsive and everything, he wanted her back. That caused this big love square and everything between him, Alex, Justin, and Juliet. Those two eventually got into like a huge fight, and she ended up biting him and he ended up scratching her. And basically, they had to write these two characters off. She started to look her age and became like, I forget how old she was, but she was really old and wrinkly, and she just hobbled away. Eventually, they brought her back around the fourth season or so, to where it turns out she was keeping an eye on Justin the entire time while she was old. Harper pretended to be her so Justin could get over her with the help of Alex. And eventually he was able to get over her and start dating other girls. Some human girl that we never saw again. But eventually they was able to cure her, I believe. Because I remember her being in the finale. And so I think they was able to cure her. And then she just started dating Justin after that. And as we all know, Justin married a human woman in the new series, so him and Juliet are no more. Personally, this sucks. I really liked him and Juliet because it's weird. Justin is such a dork, but so many girls love him and stuff. Now, of course, one reason why the actress never came back for the new series is because, and I'm very proud of her, Bridget became something of herself. I think she went to like MIT. She's like the CEO of some like satellite company or something like that, or something with space. It's something major and something big. Like she really made something of herself. Stevie, played by Haley Kiyoko. So Stevie was the new bad girl in school, and she became friends with that of Alex. But it turned out Harper found out that she's a wizard. When we first see her, she's a pretty nice girl. She just gets into devilment and everything, always getting into trouble. And she's the one responsible for like messing up Mr. Larry Tate's office with all of Justin's like flyers for student body president. And so she just did it as like a prank. And it turns out that like she started to influence Alex a little too much, to where they will always like go off and like do stuff off screen. And it caused a rift between her and Harper, where Harper lost her best friend, it felt like. Eventually they patched things up. But her influence on Alex started to cause her to be caused Alex to be very, very, very rude to Justin. So much so that it like hurt that of like Stevie, because she knows like she had a brother, they had a huge like fight over who gets to keep their powers and all that other crap. So it seemed like she was a real sincere person. But it turns out she's not. She wanted to take over the wizard world because she hates the idea of wizards losing their powers in the competition. And so she planned on doing something and hope turn Alex like on her side and this and that. But eventually Alex was able to defeat her by freezing her, and then I think Max accidentally shattered her. So technically, she's kind of dead. But knowing this is Disney Channel and it's a kids show, they're probably gonna find a way to bring her back, probably in the new series. If not, then she's dead. Now, her character was intended to be Alex's love interest and everything because they wanted to make Alex bisexual. But this is Disney Channel and that was not gonna happen. And one of the showrunners decided to make her Alex's girlfriend because turns out on the podcast he could tell that she was part of the LGBT community when she didn't even like tell nobody. Or maybe she knew she was or not. I can't remember. But like he was able to just to tell just like by looking at her and stuff. Now it turns out her brother is actually a pretty good guy. He's just kind of like Justin. And turns out I think she spelled him or something like that. So he couldn't compete in like the competition or something. No, wait. Because she would not compete. Because I think what happened was they competed, she lost, and she had to give up her powers, but because she never gave them up, he's now stuck in that room until she gives them up. And so eventually, before she like froze and everything and shattered, she gave up her powers to him and stuff. Her being on the show was really interesting in terms of diversity because she was the only recurring Asian character and stuff. Seriously, they only had one recurring black and one recurring Asian. Miranda, played by Lucy Hale from Pretty Little Liars, was Justin's first girlfriend in the first season, and I believe maybe his first on-screen human girlfriend. And so she's kind of like this tough goth girl who Justin starts to crush on and later starts to date. She only appeared in probably about 4 episodes, maybe 3. It was very briefly. And some of those funnier episodes is like, the first kiss where he's like really shy and scared to kiss her. He keeps messing up and Alex keeps reversing time. Then there was that episode where like he had a pimple and Alex somehow made the pimple come to life. And so it kept like talking and like all kind of other stuff. Maybe there was another episode she was in, but I don't really remember. Maybe she was only in 2, but it was like very brief. And then she completely like disappeared. And then fans later on saw her in Pretty Little Liars. Now, David Henry was actually dating Lucy Hale around this time, so that's probably why she was on the show. And maybe if they broke up, that's probably why she wasn't on the show no more, probably, and everything. And I told you this before, and I cannot find the video footage of this because it's apparently been scrubbed off the internet. But I remember a long time ago, there was this video that just like an article that came up talking about Lucy Hale and David Henry almost getting to like a fight with hecklers and everything. So I saw the video and it's him and her and they're leaving a place and there's these group of people and he's just getting pissed at them. I don't know what they were saying to him that pissed him off, but he was pissed. And it looked like he was about to like fight this dude. Apparently the dude he was gonna fight is some guy in the music business or something like that. So and as you can tell, him and her have been broken up because he's married to like another woman now and stuff. But it's just crazy. I remember when I saw that video and stuff. Daniel Simonius played Dean Moriarty. And so he was introduced in the second season, right in the beginning, I think maybe the first episode. And he's Alex's very first official boyfriend. She crushed on Raleigh in the first season, but nothing ever really became of them. But Dean, the grease monkey dude who fixes on cars, was her first boyfriend. He's technically considered a bad boy by that of Harper, but we never really see him do anything bad other than when he missed school because he overslept. He kind of had this James Dean type, Luke Perry type vibe to him, and fans just loved him and Alex together. Like, he wasn't smart by no means, but they just seemed to complement each other very well, you know? Like, they was a whole lot more cooler than that of her and Mason. And the thing about him is that he's always so nice to her and always so polite and polite to like her parents, you know? And he had kind of like this almost like New Yorker, Jersey type accent. And, you know, she will always misuse magic trying to get like closer to him with the smarty pants, or when she tried to pretend to be a person who could fix on cars and everything. But then, as soon after they started dating, all of a sudden he kind of just disappeared. I think he might have got caught in her journal, and where he's like the knight and and stuff like that. But yeah, after like those two became like official after like the third appearance, he just kind of disappeared. And I think he didn't re-show back up until either the third or fourth season, maybe the fourth and everything. And when he reappeared, it turns out that off screen he had just moved away. And she was invading his dreams with this, like, spell thing, like helmet thing. And in the dream, they would like go on dates, but he had no memory of it really. So eventually, when he comes back, she realizes she needs to break up with him because he's too far away and this and that. So she tries to make herself look like a hag, but he just wants to like brush her teeth and floss and everything. And then he shows back up, and I think in like the last season, and Mason just like ate him. And but then they got him out. And it's always been kind of like, fans have always wondered why did they write him out the show? Was he in other shows? Were he in other projects? Yeah, he did act in other stuff, but it just didn't make sense why they would write him out. And there might actually be a reason for that. See, when he was on the Wizards of Waverly podcast, whatever it's called, he was talking about his time on the show. And his character was supposed to kiss Selena Gomez's character. He said that it was his first time kissing on screen, and he just assumed that you just kiss like you normally would a person, right? But in Hollywood, there's something known as like Hollywood kissing. Hollywood kissing is basically when you give like a smooch peck on the lips, but you keep your mouth closed. And if a character has to like do French kissing, they open their mouth, but they don't stick their tongue in. And it's kind of just like, it looks like they're opening their mouth, but they're really not. He didn't get the memo. And he said he stuck his tongue in her mouth. Which Selena was pissed off. Because she was dating one of those Jonas brothers at the time. And so, he said he didn't mean to like offend her. He just had no idea you wasn't supposed to kiss like that. So after she was furious, it's a good speculation she probably had him written out of the show. Or, she had such a problem with him that the showrunners all like, all right, let's not just like bring him back no more and then break those two up. All right, I'm gonna cap off part one here because the video got a little too long, and I'll see you next time.